Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fandomology, where fandoms collide. And we are back, of course, with Phil. We're talking about Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers Extended Edition, and this is part two of that. Michael's going to be joining us hopefully a little bit later. But before we get back into the story, I've got something special that I want to show you guys. So have a look at this. Virginia actually made this for me. She made actual lembas bread from the movie. And so I tried a little bit at her house, but I'm going to try some now for you guys. So let me back away the mic. All right. It is very good. I added some honey to it. I don't know if it's 100% lore accurate the way that Virginia made it. It's the first and simplest recipe she found. And so yeah, it's good. All right. So, we're picking up where we left off, where Gandalf has just been revealed. And we already talked about in the last stream, Phil, toward the end, how it was that Gandalf was able to come back, where ultimately Ero Iluvatar was the one who sent him back. He spent some time with Gladriel getting his memory back. She made the staff, all the things that you mentioned. Is that about
Yeah,
the summary?
she made had the staff made. She dressed them in the white robes. Uh, we don't see that in either the theatrical release nor the extended edition, but that's in the book.
Right. So, picking up where we left off then, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli then follow Gandalf to Edoras because they are aware at this point. The three hunters had already talked to Eomer, talking about how bad a shape Theoden had become, and Gandalf decides that he needs to go help. And he asks for the three hunters to come with him, saying that Merry and Pippin are going to be fine. And he also talks about how the trees are waking up. And it's here that we then meet Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax. So there's a special M word, I forget what it's called, that Legolas uses to describe what Shadowfax is. So can you go into a little bit of depth on that, Phil?
It's I have the name of it on the tip of my tongue. I just can't recall it. First of all, the movie is different from the book. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first book wise. When Gandalf is rescued by the eagle from Orthanc from Isengard. The eagle takes him to Edoras. And when he was there, King Theoden, under the spell and everything, tells Gandalf, look, I don't want you here. You need to leave. I just don't want you here. Pick whatever horse you want and go. And one of the horses he picked is that special horse. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Gandalf has his special horse. From the moment he leaves there, so in a book, that's how that situation develops. In the movie, you see him make the call. Here comes the horse out of the, out in the valley. And you hear Gandalf say he has been his ride for many adventures.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the book. Okay. I don't
Right.
have a problem with the little twist there, difference there. Again, not everything that's going to be in any book is going to appear in the movie.
Right.
But there's the big difference there with this horse.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be a descendant of one of the first horses,
Yes.
and he has the ability to be able to go long distances without tiring as other horses would get tired. So, for
Right.
example, he might be able to go 100 miles before the horse gets tired. Where in practical real life terms, a normal horse would probably get tired after 15, 20 miles of heavy running,
Mm-hmm.
we ride. So there's a big difference there.
Right. And real quick, I want to say hello to Eddie Gannon. And he says, I'm familiar with this movie too. Awesome, man. So if you've got any further insight into something that Phil and I have not mentioned, of course, feel free to put it in the chat. Excuse me, and we will discuss it. So they ride to Edoras, and by this point, Theodred has died. We already said in the last stream, he got ambushed at the Fords of Isen, and he got brought back to Edoras and ultimately died of his wounds. And Eowyn first tries to tell Theoden what's going on, but Theoden's like completely, he's borderline a vegetable already. Real quick, Eddie says, not sure what you've been through. So basically, Eddie, the hopeful timeline of tonight's stream is we're going to talk from the reveal of Gandalf the White to Frodo, Sam, and Gollum getting captured by Faramir's men, and we're going in order of what they show in the movie. So, like I said, Eowyn is trying to tell Theoden what happened, but Theoden is just completely unresponsive at this point. And she goes back, I guess, to tend the body, and in comes Grima Wormtongue, and he's being creepy. Like he's trying to both comfort. Okay, he's putting on an act that he's comforting a grieving Eowyn who just lost her cousin, but really we know exactly what he wants. He's trying to put the moves on her in his own creepy way. Is that right, Phil?
He's been promised by Sauron for him helping him get Rohan
Mm-hmm.
is to he would have what's I forgot her name already.
Eowyn.
Eowyn.
Yes.
So apparently he had the thing for her for a long time, and let's just put it this way: she's not interested. You know, what can you say?
So that happens, and she goes outside, and of course, there's the scene that Virginia told me about. There's a scene in the movie that just was not supposed to happen, where the flag rips off the pole and floats all the way down to where Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are riding it. Apparently, that was not supposed to happen, but I guess it was so fitting to what was going on. Like the house of Theoden is just crumbling, that the flag getting torn down was just so poetic to that I guess that's why they kept it.
Mm-hmm. Well, a flag being torn off the mast is not nothing unusual,
Right.
but in this setting, and given that it's not intended to happen, but it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really made a point in seeing that.
Exactly. And so Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride through town, and of course, everyone in the town is just reacting bitterly toward the four of them. They get to this top of the steps of Edoras, and Theoden's right hand man basically says, by order of Grima Wormtongue, you're not allowed to walk into the throne room armed.
Okay.
And
He
so
is one of you would want to call guard. You would want to say King's man.
mm-hmm.
You know, King's guard. Him and the other guy. That's I don't know his name.
It's Hama and Gamling.
Yeah, they're both the King's guard.
Right.
So when they see Gandalf come up, it's their job to okay, you can come in, but you can't come armed.
Right.
So that's logical. I mean, in any situation, you're not going to let an armed person walk into the White House, right?
Oh,
So,
certainly not.
so
So yeah, everyone hands over their weapons, and Hama tries to take Gandalf's staff, but Gandalf's just not having it. So he begrudgingly lets Gandalf keep the staff, and he walks in, and already Grima is whispering in his ear, Gandalf's coming. He's not welcome. And Gandalf tries to call him out, saying, what's going on here? This isn't normal for you. Quote, I believe, the courtesy of your hall is somewhat lessened of late, Theoden King. And Grima tries to insult Gandalf after Theoden says, why should I welcome you? And basically Gandalf just says, shut up. I didn't survive a Balrog attack just to come and deal with you. And I know he says it more fancier than that, but that's what he said, and I love that.
Yeah. I like how he had thugs,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going to beat up everybody that was there, but they end up getting beat up themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I did love the part where Gimli tells Grima, I would stay down if I were you.
Exactly.
So,
And so Gandalf, as this brawl is happening, approaches Theoden, and keep in mind, right now he's disguised as Gandalf the Grey, and he tries to release Theoden from the spell. Theoden or Saruman, it's kind of unclear really who's in control here, just laughs at that. But then he throws the cloak off, and you see his shining white robes, and he throws Saruman out of Theoden's mind. And I like how they did this, where Saruman's putting up a fight through Theoden and had Christopher Lee's voice coming out of Theoden. If I go, he dies.
well, for me, for this scene, uh, it's almost a power play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, Going by what's going on in this scene, let's just say this: the most powerful being in Middle Earth. We're not talking the Valinor, because they're all the way across the other side of the world. The
Mm-hmm.
most powerful being in this movie at this point is now Gandalf the White. All right.
Right.
It was before, going by movie, Saruman the White. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was the most, they're both Maiars.
Yes.
And at this point in time, and with all the events, there's only 4 Maiars. Well, actually 5 that we know of. You have
Gandalf,
Saruman, Gandalf,
Saruman,
they're
the
Maiars.
two blue wizards, and then
2 Blue
Radagast.
Wizard, Radagast, and the Belrog. The
Right.
Belrog and Sauron are both Maiars. So you have these Maiars, all right? So right now, there's only 3. You don't know where Radagast is. You don't know what happened to the Blue Wizards. So it's Saruman, Gandalf, and
And
Sauron.
me.
Okay. Now, going by book, not by movie, the most powerful being in all Middle Earth is Glorfindel. Glorfindel is the most powerful being. And do you know why, Paul?
I know we talked about this before, where before Gandalf did, Glorfindel was the first one to be brought back from the dead by Eru Ilúvatar. Right?
Well,
Yes.
he during the fall on Gondolin, he fights single-handedly against a Balrog
Yeah.
and
Specifically
defeats the
Gothmog.
Balrog, and he dies. Now, when an elf dies, he goes back to Valinor, but he goes into the Hall of Mithras, where they have to wait a certain point in time, and they get a reincarnated body. Okay. There are some people there that's been there since the first age. They didn't get a body. All right. But Glorfindel, almost immediately, if you're going by time, gets a reincarnated body. Now, depending on what how Tolkien was writing at one point and at another point, when Glorfindel comes back to Middle Earth, it's hard to establish. Some people said he's the first to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Others say he comes back with just the two blue wizards. Okay.
Okay.
I fall along the line, he comes back first by himself. I like to follow the line that way. Then I believe the blue wizards come, and then Sauron, Radagast, and Gandalf comes after. That's how order I choose. Now, the other orders you can pick and choose if you want. That's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say here and now, reason why I'm also saying this, because even at this time in the movie, they make out that Galadriel is the most powerful being in Middle Earth.
Which is
She's
not
not.
true.
No, she's powerful.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
put me up there. But she's not on the level of Glorfindel. Glorfindel, let's put it to you this way. If the wizards fail, Galadriel fails, Middle Earth has Glorfindel. He's like supercharged. All right, if you're gonna put him on as let's compare to angels.
Would you say to to put it another way, I didn't mean to cut you off, but would you
Okay.
say that Glorfindel is like the best equivalent that Middle Earth has to Superman?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. And this is why some people question why didn't Glorfindel go with the Fellowship of the Ring, or why didn't he just take the ring to destroy it? Everybody of the when they sent the wizards over, all right, the Maiar, when they send them five, they all had a mission. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The blue wizards, when they hit here, they knew they had to go to the eastern lands. So they
Yes.
went, and Sauron went with them. Gandalf's mission was men, elves, and dwarves. All right. He didn't go east. He didn't go south. He was basically in the realm of middle. You want what we would call Middle Earth.
Right.
Radagast wasn't really intended to come here to do what the other four wizards were doing. He was supposed to help, but his Balinor that he served really sent him over. You can say, and this is speculatory, for another purpose. She is the Balinor that's in charge of plants and animals. And
Right.
I feel that she sent him over for that particular reason. I'm not
Makes
saying
sense.
his mission wasn't similar to the other four wizards, but I think he had more to do than the other four had to do.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to make it clear they're powerful, they're angels. But Glorfindel, when he's brought back and sent back, I don't want to say he's higher, but he's more powerful. He's
Right.
probably the most powerful being in Middle Earth. But movie wise, right now, because of this scene, you can put Gandalf as the most powerful being in the movie.
Okay.
In Middle Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I
Which
would
real
say
quick,
even higher than Galadriel because she wasn't sent back by the powers of Ritar. You know,
right.
he was. So
Which which real quick, Michael, just to get you caught up, we are currently at the part where Gandalf is casting Sauron out of Theoden.
Yeah.
So I have a little what if question for you guys here. I feel like we've already answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What do you think would have happened if Gandalf had attempted that as just Gandalf the Grey?
Well, we actually kind of know the answer to that already within the pages of the Fellowship of the Ring. Of course, it's not like in the books where Gandalf is performing an exorcism on him,
Mm-hmm.
like how we see in the movies, but based off of book knowledge, we know that he Gandalf actually does see Theoden sometime before the Fellowship departs from Rivendell, but Theoden
Right.
doesn't listen because Grima Wormtongue by that time was already poisoning him with whatever words he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much the short answer would be it wouldn't work.
Okay.
I
Phil,
think
anything to
it
add?
would be. I think you would have got the results of similar what happened to Gandalf when he went to Isengard. He's he at that point, Gandalf the Grey is
Mhm.
not as powerful as Sauron.
Mhm.
He's
Okay.
not. Um, Sauron is more powerful. The whole
Yeah.
purpose of him coming back, and the book wise, it's not. It doesn't say it, but in the movie he says it. I am to be as Sauron was supposed to be. So in a sense, he become what Sauron rejected, or what he was.
Mhm.
By stepping in the role as the White Wizard. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So, real quick, another question just popped up in my mind here. Going back to the scene in Fellowship where Frodo offers the ring to Gandalf and he says, "I can't take this because I would use this ring from a desire to do good, but through me it would wield a power too great and terrible to imagine." Would that have also applied to Gandalf the White? Or could it have been like you said, Phil, with Saruman, where perhaps Saruman, you know, pre Gandalf the White could have had a chance of bending the ring to his will.
in the beginning,
Mhm.
Sauron could have took the ring, and he can probably use it. But
Mhm.
would he have fallen under the power of Sauron? Yes, yes. If Gandalf would have took it, definitely.
Mhm.
No one can use that ring but Sauron. The difference is, and what a lot of people forget, Saruman was even looking into creating his own ring.
Mhm.
Now, if he
Which
created a ring kind of similar like you get in Shadows of Mordor, you have
Mhm.
two rings to rule them all, right? You got the regular ring and you got the
And the
blue
new
ring
ring.
that Calrinro uses, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Well, this will be a similar circumstance where you have two rings and okay. Now Sauron got the power ring and Saruman got a power ring. They might at first, be all buddy buddy. But once everything's settled and it's only them two standing, they're going to go toe to toe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gandalf
And I
could
Where
use the
there
ring to
is.
defeat everybody, but it would have worked him to the point where, just like you see with Galadriel, went through the same test.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Nobody could have wielded that ring
Yeah.
in Middle Earth. Maybe a Valinor could have, but no, no.
Yeah.
Okay. So so getting back to the story, Gandalf is successful in casting out Saruman from Theoden, and we see in the movie that there's sort of a de-aging process that happens where Theoden goes back to basically who he was before Saruman took him over. Is that accurate to the books? Was it like physically aging to
No, but
Theoden to
it
be
was
under that?
a awakening. Let's say he get cured.
Okay. Okay, so fair enough then. But Theoden comes back to his senses. He immediately recognizes Eowyn and um Gandalf says, "Breathe the free air, my friend. Your fingers would remember their strength if they grasped your sword." He got his hands on the sword, which one thing that I really wish would have been included a little bit more in in the movies is the names of the swords. Because yeah, we get the famous ones like Sting, Narsil, Anduril, but I don't think we actually hear the name of Glamdring, just as a side note, until the Hobbit movies,
Hmm.
nor do we hear that Theoden's sword has a name. I believe it's called Harrogrim.
I would disagree in calling Sting a sword.
More of a letter
Yeah, that's
opener, I
a
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
that actually
It
reminds me of a theory that I once saw one time. It's not really based on anything, it's probably not true, but some people like to imagine that Sting is actually Glorfindel's old knife that he used against Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, during the fall of Gondolin.
That is different than what I had heard, because I had heard that Sting used to belong to Celebrimbor, and that you act. And keep in mind, this is by the Shadow of Mordor game, which I'm currently playing through right now.
Yeah, and those
And
games, even though they're amazing, they're non-canon to Tolkien or even to the movies.
although they do reference the movies quite a bit,
Yeah. But yeah,
but
it's specifically because Sting still has the same characteristics as Glamdring and Orcrist, where
yes,
they're where in the books as they're described, they're imbued with jewels and runes, and all of them possess the ability to glow blue when orcs or goblins are near.
yep. And in those times, my lad, you must be extra careful.
hmm Yeah. But
But
anyways, it was also a pretty good where Theoden grabs his sword, and then we hear the Ride of Rohan theme playing as he draws his sword. Almost
yes,
like at first he struggles to pull the
hmm
sword, but then once he does, he feels like he's whole again.
hmm and then immediately after that, he casts Grima Wormtongue out, nearly kills him, but Aragorn jumps in and stops him, saying enough blood has been spilt on his account. And I didn't notice this detail until watching this movie um for this review. Aragorn offers his hand to Grima Wormtongue, but he spits on it. And that's how he recognizes the Ring of Barahir that he later goes to tell Sauron about.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, you're wearing it, aren't you?
Yeah,
Nice.
so this is specifically the one from the movie. Of course, I've seen other iterations of the same ring
Uh-huh.
as derived from the books, but specifically as the book describes, it's that has a center jewel where it's green, and then right here is a snake that's biting into the other snake. And
Mhm.
this was also a first age relic from another king or another leader named Barahir, who is the father of Baron. And we also hear his name again from the tale of Baron and Luthien.
Right. So Grima rides off and goes to Isengard. We'll catch him later, but immediately after this is the funeral for Theodred. And this is a scene that gets added in the extended edition where you see the funeral procession, you see Theodred getting carried on the spears and the shields, and
hmm
you hear Eowyn chanting in the Rohirrim language. So I'm going to do something real quick, and I'm going to look up translated what Eowyn was chanting. Uh all right. So this is coming from the wiki, and this is the translation from Rohirrim. It says, "Now dear Theodred lies in darkness, most loyal of fighters. The sound of the harp shall not wake the warrior, nor shall the man hold a golden wine cup, nor good hawk swing through the hall, nor the swift horse stamp in the courtyard. An evil death has set forth the noble warrior. A song shall sing the sorrowing minstrels of Mesodeld, that noble cousin who always held me dear, now is held in darkness enclosed." So the funeral scene itself, what did you guys think of it? And was that accurate to the book?
It was definitely a
Impossible to hear
somber
singing in the
story.
book, but I would say that they caught the heart of the funeral service.
Mhm.
Should have been in the movie. I think that scene should have been included in the theatric release. I'm glad they did put it in the extended version. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And I know we talked about this in part 1, Phil, but Imma say it again. They should have also included the scene where Éomer finds him.
Yes, and that's what, not even 4 seconds, not even
Like,
4 or 5 seconds scene.
at the most 30.
So it's not that big of a add-on. I mean, you know, I felt that. Look, not every scene makes it into a movie, but I
Right.
think them two scenes are very important because first of all, you only seen him in the theatric release, him lying in the bed dying, but you don't know who he is and what happened to him, and then you don't hear nothing afterwards,
Exactly.
nothing. It would have made. I think they both could have stayed in the movie, and it wouldn't have added more to the runtime.
Right. Michael, your thoughts?
All right. Let me see. So you said that. So you were asking earlier if it was
I w
accurate.
Yeah, I was asking just in general, what did you think of the scene, and is it accurate to the book?
All right. Let's see. I've definitely liked this scene very well, even though it's pretty short and sweet. And of course, being a little bit biased given my profession within my second job, as I'm going to call it, I
Mhm.
also really like scenes where they truly he honored dad, especially
Absolutely.
since Theoden at first had not even acknowledged it while he was under the influence of Grima Wormtongue.
Mhm.
And so, let's see. Um,
Are you looking it up right now, Mike?
yeah.
Okay. Take your time. While you do that, we'll continue on with the story. Um, After the funeral, Theoden and Gandalf are talking about the flowers that grow, and we see. So this scene was in the theatrical edition, but the scene is made all the more better about with the actual funeral procession that the extended edition adds. Like watching it in preparation for this review, seeing Theoden by himself with Gandalf grieving Theodred, it nearly brought me to tears because it's especially the way that the actor delivers the line, "No parent should ever have to bury their child," and yeah, like, even in the real world, that is something that, unfortunately, parents have to do sometimes.
It's life, and I know a lot of people say, "Well, it shouldn't be that case." That's life. You should. My personal belief is when it's your time, it's your time. It doesn't matter if you only had a 1 minute of life or if you had 100 years of life. You know, when if you're a believer, you don't get to pick and choose. The Lord Almighty picks and chooses. And to say, well, it shouldn't have happened, it's kind of like calling God wrong. Whatever reasons or purposes he has, like, and in this world, you have Ilúvatar, pretty much the equivalent of God. Uh, whatever the reasons for it fits his plan. We don't know his plan. In our world, God's plan. In this world, not even the Valinor know all the plans of Eru Ilúvatar. So
Exactly.
when he dies, it's sad, but it it does fulfill a purpose because it drives Theoden that much harder to know that he knows he has this feeling that he's going to die at one of the greatest battles.
Mhm.
It's not a fortune teller. It's not something Gandalf says to him. even before he gets to the Pelennor Fields, he knows he's going to die at the doom of his time. That's what he says.
Yep.
But I
Alas that
think,
alas that these days should be mine.
yes, but I think he kind of, yes, he's sad his son's died, but I think he rises up to the challenge knowing that it's going to happen. I got to do this for my people. No matter what, I have to make my stand for them. And don't forget, he still has family, his niece and his nephew, that he's
Exactly.
practically raising as his own kids.
Hmm.
So, he does have a willing or a will to keep going.
Right.
So, and you get a different Theoden once he's doing that. He is a leader. He's not what he was before Gandalf, under the influence of Wormtongue, you know.
Right.
Uh, it's sad, but it would have been nice that maybe if his son was alive, that his son could see his dad back to his normal self. But
Right.
sometimes things like that happens in the world, and you have to take it for what it is.
Exactly. Did you find it, Michael?
I can't find it. From what I see in the pages, I don't see anything referring to
It
the
might
Lament
it,
of
it might
Theodred.
be under Unfinished Tales if you have that book. It probably could be in one of the other books that Christopher Tolkien put in there. Because he put
Okay,
a
I
lot of
do
things
have
in there that his dad took out.
Right.
yeah, I do have Unfinished Tales, but you know what? Let's not worry about that because
So,
yeah, I don't see it in the Two Towers, but I'm sure that it's somewhere. And even if it's did come from nothing, it's original to the movie, I think that's okay.
right. So we got to go backwards a little bit now because I realized there was a couple scenes with Merry and Pippin that we forgot to talk about. One of which I think this was the one that happened first, where Merry and Pippin wake up in Fangorn Forest and come to find out Pippin had been drinking the water and is getting taller from it. And the two hobbits fight over the water and get buried under a tree, and Treebeard has to rescue them. What is that water, and how is it able to make Merry and Pippin grow like that?
The water is what the, if you want to call them tree herders, ents,
Mm-hmm.
is what they feed the trees. It's a special water in a forest that causes the trees to grow faster.
Okay.
All right. Now, in the book, see, it gets confusing a lot of times. In the book, they talk about them drinking it, but they really don't mention that they are growing taller. They're getting stronger, or they're recovering from their journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ever, in this case, if you ever watched the cartoons, at the end of the Lord of the Rings, it's implied Merry and Pippin, when Gandalf is talking about how the Earth is going to change,
Mm-hmm.
hobbits are going to change, and he points out, look at Merry and Pippin. They're taller than Frodo and Sam. They're almost as tall as humans. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's implied in the animation. In the book, that's all they say is, well, they're a little bit taller than the average hobbit.
Right.
So is it a natural evolution? Or was it because what they were drinking in the forest? But Gandalf, when you're doing it in the cartoon, he's more implying this is affecting all hobbits naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in this movie, that water has the power to make them stronger, but make them grow. That's
Right.
what's the power for what they were implying in the movie.
Right. And then the other scene involving Merry and Pippin and Treebeard is seemingly less important, but I'm sure there's some significance to it, where Treebeard is reciting different songs that he had written and likes, and they go into the thing about the Entwives and how they can't find them, and it's just a nice scene that gets you to know Treebeard a little bit better.
It's implied there's no official way of saying that it did happen. But
Right.
the Antwives are supposedly in the land of south of Milkwood Forest. That when Sauron, towards the beginning of the end of the Second Age,
Mm-hmm.
going into the third, destroys this whole forest area opposite of where Fangor Forest. There's a river in between. On the other side of the river is desert. Well, it's kind of grassland now at this time, but it was desolate because the Sauron just pretty much torched it. And they speculate that the Antwives were where they lived. So
Right.
the Antwives got torched by the orcs in Saruman's army.
Which was tragic, if
Right,
that's
it's
indeed
the
what happened.
one. It's not the Battle of the Last Alliance. It is the battle between Sauron and Celebrimbor when he went after to get all the rings from him.
Right, which I believe is what the DLC of, if I'm not mistaken, that's what the DLC of the first Shadow of Mordor game is about, right?
I've
No,
actually no, that's the second
after.
one.
Afterwards, Sauron already killed him,
Oh,
but he has come back and he was able to possess that the hero of the game. But
yeah,
the
Tyrion, I believe
battle,
his name
when you
is.
see Sauron go in there and capture his family and capture Celebrimbor, that's the war. I don't know. There's a fancy name for the war, but it was during that war when he was leaving Mordor, coming across the river. There was a forest. That's where the Antwives lived at, and Saruman torched it.
Right. I want to say that's what, the War of the Second Age or something?
Mm, all I can tell you is when the Numenorians came over and they defeat Sauron, and then they end up capturing and bringing them back to Numenor. Whatever war that one is.
Oh, that one. Okay, the one that they basically bastardized for Rings of Power.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you have to
So,
remember where Celebrimborn's at and where his little kingdom, Elf Kingdom, is south of Rivendell and near the mines of Moria. If you
mhm.
went there now, remember we talked about before that was mentioned in the books, but not a movie. The stones were able to tell where the elves were, but the grounds forgot about them.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the
Yes.
same war. And like I said, Sauron destroyed that whole area to get the you knew Celebrimbor had made the rings with him, and then found out he made 3 elf rings, which he did not have a part of,
Mhm.
and he was really possessive. He wanted all the rings back. All he. I don't want to make him out to be an Indian giver, but he was an Indian giver.
Of course.
So yeah.
So, let's now switch to Frodo and Sam and Gollum's perspective. I know we're kind of going out of order here, and that I'm sorry, but that's basically where we're going now. So, at this point, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum reach the Black Gate.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a confession to make. When I saw Two Towers and then later saw Return of the King, for whatever reason, I thought there were 2 Black Gates because I didn't realize that we were looking at the same Black Gate, but from 2 different angles, where Aragorn and his army approach the Black Gate head on in Return of the King. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are looking at it kind of from the side. So,
Well, you have to
anyways,
remember it's the point of Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are trying to look for a way to sneak in
yes,
when Aragon and the army's there. It's more of we want you to see us. So
right.
Also, just want to throw this out here. Of course, I'm only using this as a reaction for, YouTube playability and whatnot.
I should be able. I have the link that you sent me, Michael. I might be able to pull that and use it as a clip. Let me just see if I can
Yeah,
real
if
quick.
you if you can, please pull that up because that's how I feel. Because although this is actually the first time, kind of a side note, that we actually get to see the Easterlings as they are marching into Mordor. And I want to say that I thought that they were pretty interesting, just because for the most part, it's from we've seen in the movies, it's mainly been orcs, goblins, and urukai that are fighting for the forces of evil. But now we are seeing corrupted men as well. And I want to say that specifically these Easterlings are
Yes,
from the country of Rune, where the Blue Wizards had ventured, but then were never seen again.
which makes you wonder: did the Easterlings perhaps kill the Blue Wizards?
That's actually what the in-game description for the antagonist of Shadow of Mordor states, where the Black Hand of Sauron had
it's
gotten.
never we even with Christopher Tolkien, they never give you an official what
Yeah,
happened to the Blue Wizards.
yeah,
Mhm.
Everybody deems them that they failed. Tolkien says that he first thought they failed, but then he decided they didn't fail, that they actually succeeded because had the full force of the Easterlings and the men of the South were
Mhm.
to had assembled, they would have overrun Middle Earth.
hmm
I believe
Uh,
it.
or there's always a third option. There, or even a fourth. They're still around.
Mhm.
We don't know anything about it. Or another option is they succeeded and left and went back to Valinor.
hmm
We
That's
don't
the
know.
option I believe is the fourth one. They succeeded and left
Because
because
Saruman comes back. He goes with them originally. And then he comes back. And then you don't know anything. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you have poor Radagast that everybody also says failed. But you don't know anything about that neither.
Right.
Okay, and let's put this way: everybody says Saruman is the head of the order. Well, the other head of the Blue Wizards, I believe, was on equal par by the Valinors when they
Mhm.
send them over. Okay, so there is a possibility the Blue Wizards could have came back, took Radagast, and said it's time for us to leave.
hmm
Again, we
Could
don't
have.
know the full mission. We know the mission of why all the five wizards came. Okay. But we don't know the true mission that Radagast's Valinor that he served, why she sent him back. She could have sent him back here to Middle Earth to help and also take care of what he needed to take care of with the plants and the animals. Or her whole intention was that Radagast never come back.
hmm
That
Right.
needs to stay there and take care of that stuff.
Real
There's
quick,
sorry,
let
I need to go on.
me it's okay. Let me address this real quick. Eddie says Radagast was a scout, I believe, but he didn't fail.
I could see it. I could also see another option where maybe the Blue Wizards and Radagast are following orders by Tom Bombadil.
Could have been, because
Ye-
Tom Bombadil is at best a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities. I would say the only one wizard we can say failed here now is Saruman, because when he dies, his spirit comes up. It starts to act like it's going to head back to Valinor, and the wind blows it away, just like they did with the essence of Saruman. So both of them are lifeless. I mean, they're alive, but they don't have any form. They're, you know, they're not nothing, but they are something, but they're just a whisper, just like that.
Right.
Even if the Blue Wizards died, if they died, let's say they got killed, they would have went back to Valinor. If
And it,
Radagast got killed, he would have went back to Valinor. None of them did what Saruman did and betrayed the whole mission. Betrayed Eru Iluvatar. Forget the Valinor, betrayed Eru Iluvatar. None of
right.
them four did. So I think if any of them four, besides Saruman, that died, if the other three died, I think they would have, their spirit would have went back to Valinor.
Mhm.
That's my belief.
I could definitely see that. Um so getting back to the story, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum reach the Black Gate, and they they're trying to get a good look, but Sam, of course, loses his grip, falls down the hill, and two Easterlings notice them, and they're able to take cover under the cloaks that Gladriel had given the entirety of the Fellowship. So, how does that work? How does it
Well,
work?
that's purely movie, and yeah, I like the kind of how they were able to throw it over themselves, and their green cloak magically was able to take the appearance of a rock.
Right. Also, fun fact, in the Return of the King video game that came out on the PlayStation 2, original Xbox, and GameCube, if you're playing as any of the hobbits, you can use that ability to
Yeah.
sneak through different areas, which
Mhm.
I've still got those, by the way, Michael, on emulator. I might have to stream those at some point.
Yeah, me too. And the only caveat to that ability is that once you try to attack somebody while you're invisible, your invisibility gets canceled and it has to recharge.
Exactly. Excuse me. So they managed to get Sam to safety, and let they managed to let the Easterlings pass them. But as they're about to make a rush for the gate, Smeagol stops them, saying, "Don't go that way. That way's bad. Go this way instead." Quote, "There's a path and then some stairs and then a tunnel." So here's what I'm wondering. Could Gollum have already been planning his betrayal of Frodo and Sam at the hands of Smeagol as far back as that?
Even if it's not necessarily like premeditated at that point, which at this point I don't think he had premeditated because you know what they say, the truth is in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
I believe that it's definitely possible that it's subconscious because obviously he probably said that with good intentions. And plus, who's gonna go walking through the front door? That's just dumb. But then the ring, using its corrupting effect, probably twisted that and was and then we see later what Gollum actually plans to do by taking them to the Morgul path.
Right. So going back to the story, Phil, what's your take on that? Why did Gollum have them switch routes right there at the Black Gate?
Book movie difference there with Gollum is this: movie Gollum legitimately, let's say, wants to help.
Mhm.
At this point, he trusts Frodo. He's earned his trust. Now was told to take him to this gate, and he did that. But
Yes.
Gollum was like, okay, this might be too hard to do. Uh, so I think that's why he said, "Oh, I know another way." Book wise, Gollum always wanted that ring back, and he knew that if he can get her in the book, he can get them to go up to the stairs and to the Spider Queen. Let's call her that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, he had a deal with her previously that he would bring her anytime he was around there, uh, goblins, so she could have something to eat, and she would leave him alone. Because you have to remember, Gollum's going everywhere. Okay,
Right.
so in the book, he already had an alliance with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has an undying hunger, much like her mom. Her mom was the spider that killed the two trees.
Ungoliant.
Right. And
Yes.
she had an undying hunger. Well,
Hmm.
she is the same way. But this
Yeah.
one had to deal with Gollum that if he would occasionally bring him, uh, goblins, you know, she won't mess with him.
Yeah.
And, that was his peace offering to her. He realized in a book, he put way before this two and two together. If I get them to go up there, she gets fed, I get my ring.
Yeah.
Right. But
And
in the movie,
another.
I really think there's a point in time where Gollum's like, I really want to help and I really want to be friends.
Hmm.
In a book wise, that's no. He's always one thing and one thing only. He's warped by the ring and he wants the ring back.
Right.
So, but I think
Yeah.
that's why in the movie he was legitimately trying to tell him, look, if Frodo and Sam try to go through the gate, we can almost guarantee they're going to get captured, killed, and the
Hmm.
ring's going back to Sauron. All right,
Yeah.
and that's one thing Smeagol don't want. He don't want the last person or being you wants to have the ring is Sauron because he'll never get it back.
Absolutely.
See, so but yeah, the difference in the book, the movie, there's a legit thing there that Gollum's trying to be good. Book, he's always been sneaky. There's the
Hmm.
difference.
And another thing to mention is the fact that in the books, Gollum is actually called Shelob Sneak by the orcs because they know well what he's been doing, well as it also points something to Shelob, where for Shelob in the movies, and I know that we'll get to it later, but she's just basically a giant spider. Like there's nothing necessarily special about her except for the fact that she's a giant spider.
And
But in
she
the books,
certainly wasn't any form of shapeshifter that could turn into a woman. Shadow of War.
That's only for that movie.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
game,
but
that game, excuse me.
yeah, it's in the
Which I
books.
would be a
She,
nice. It would have been a nice addition that she
yeah.
had that power.
Hmm. Although in the book, she actually possesses a form of intelligence if Gollum was able to communicate with her. Although,
That
if you
is
ask me
true.
personally about the book, I personally feel like she was only able to turn back into a woman in Shadow of War because she had the new ring. Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to the story. We then see um let's go back to Theoden and Gandalf and all them for a second. So, immediately after the funeral, those two kids that left the town that got sacked before, um she those two kids finally come to Edoras. Eowyn's taking care of them, and Gandalf is giving counsel to Theoden, saying, "Ride out and meet him head on." And at first, Theoden doesn't want to do it. He's like, There's been enough death on my people. I don't want to give them more," which understandable. But Aragorn ultimately, he made, like, I'm gonna use an MCU quote. He's out of line, but he's right. Open war is upon you if you would risk it or not. But Theoden was also right when he said, hey, buddy, I'm the king here, not you.
Hmm.
So ultimately, Theoden decides to empty Edoras, and they start the journey to Helm's Deep. And this is where we get the classic, Gandalf's going out to look for Éomer, and he says, they looked at my coming at the first light of the fifth day, look to the east, and, all that stuff. And then we get another scene that got added in the extended edition where Aragorn meets his horse Brago for the first time. Come to find out, Brago used to be Theodred. He used to be Theodred's horse. And in the attack,
Hmm.
Brago basically became useless. He was too tense, too anxious. But Aragorn was able to speak to something to him in Elvish that calmed him down. And um this is where you could say that Éowyn starts to have a thing for Aragorn. And I'm gonna really quick quote Virginia here because she was watching this with me earlier today. She said, I don't know how I don't know how long it actually took, but in the movie, it felt like they were only there for 3 days, and just after 3 days, Éowyn had a crush on Aragorn. And I told her, and I'm sure you guys can agree with me here too, that one of the biggest failings of these movies is they don't show very well how much time is actually passing. So
Yeah.
let me ask you guys this. How long did it take from when Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli arrived at Edoras to them leaving for Helm's Deep? About how much time was that?
Weeks. I would say safe bet is 1 month, but I would say it was weeks.
Okay.
All right. So you have to remember when you do the Lord of the Rings and you're following Frodo and his journey to Mordor. If I remember correctly, it's about a year and a half total journey.
Right.
Total journey.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say at least 3 weeks to a month
Mhm.
max. That whole whole
Okay.
ordeal.
And I can tell you from experience, yes, you can fall in love with someone within a month.
Uh, they were in love way before that. Maybe might not showed it, but they were in love. Uh, if I remember correctly, and you have to remember, Aragorn right now is what 71 or 79, somewhere right there in this
Yeah,
time. When he is 29 is when him and her fall in love.
him and Éowyn, not
Yes,
Arwen.
yes, 29. So right about now, that's been 50 years.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, he's been having the Elistar, the little necklace. He's been having
Whoa.
that for quite a long time
Hold,
now.
hold, hold on a second, Phil. You're talking about Arwen, the daughter of
Yeah,
Elrond, right?
yes. But if you're
I'm
talking,
talking about I'm talking
yes,
about
yes, but if you're
Éowyn.
talking about her, this isn't the first time Argon's been in Arathis
Rohan.
to see Theoden. He has ridden with Theoden before.
I think
He's
he rode
ridden with
with
his
his
grandfather
father, right?
and grandfather.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is again not even really in the book, but he's been there before. He had to be there before because he at one time was serving Denethor in Minas Tirith before they knew he was really Aragon.
Right.
You know, he's just as much a traveler as Gandalf.
Gandalf. Mhm.
So yeah, I don't think that's the first time she laid eyes on Aragon, but I would say she probably let's give me a little leeway here.
Mhm.
A young girl sees Aragon, maybe 40 years old, sees a warrior, sees all this, and likes what she sees. Here he pops around years later, still likes what she sees. So maybe he was a child crush that still was there. You know,
Mhm.
Okay.
but we
I
don't get none of that because, like I said, the movie you know they can't go backwards and everything. The only thing that would defeat my little hypothesis there is Earmir didn't seem to know Aragon, and if
yeah,
he
and
didn't know him, then maybe his sister didn't know him. But if they've been there since they were children when their mom and dad died at a young age, and let's say they're in their 30s at least, Aragon's been there.
okay,
So
real quick, Virginia says in the extended edition on the Adventure to Helm's Deep that Aragorn is 87.
Yes.
Oh, and real quick, Virginia also reminded me of another thing that she said. She's messaging me on Facebook. She says that another thing that she had said of Eowyn is that overall she seems really needy in the movie.
Hmm.
I think she
Also,
kind of had the child, the little girl fall
Yeah,
in love with the, grown man crush, and the grown man crush never ended. It happens, teeny bopper love, Uh, a girl when at my age would have been like say they were 7, 8, 9 years old would have had a crush on Sean Cassidy or his brother. They were very popular people, and they used to put their posters of them on the wall. And I'm pretty sure a girl that age, when she was in her 30s, were to meet Sean Cassidy or somebody very popular, and they had a childhood crush. That crush doesn't go away.
I
I
gotcha.
can't speak for a woman. You know, I could tell you as a man that if I saw Farrah Fawcett at my age of 20, that I had to crush on her at age 7, it didn't go away for me. You know, and you have to remember, there's a saying in the Two Towers that when Aragon pretty much told her that he didn't love her, he told her that she was loving something that was a shadow and a myth. Not him. It's not Aragon the guy, but the image. And he pretty much told her before he went on to go into the ghost of the dead there. You know, so
Right.
even in the movie, it kind of tells you that she had like a crush on him. And that crush was
Mhm.
very deep, but it wasn't real. It wasn't real.
Exactly.
It's a childhood crush, just like in the real world.
Right. And of course, while this is going on, Grima has made his way back to Sauron, and we see Sauron's reaction to the fact that Gandalf is now the White. And Grima also talks about who was with Gandalf, drawing special attention to Aragorn. And it's here that Sauron realizes that Gandalf thinks he's found the true king of Gondor, which of course we know that he actually did. And
Well, let's be correct on that. The true heir of the Gondor and Arnor, uh, there's been many. Aragon is one of many, but he is the last current able in line. All right. And one mistake in this movie, they keep calling him the heir of Isidore. That's not the case. There's been many kings after Isidore when he dies. His line breaks because one of his sons didn't have any kids. So the line of kings went to a different group of say different house. Okay.
Mhm.
Is he the last line of that house? The correct term should be whoever the last king was of that house, and it wasn't Isidore. I forget the name of the king, but there's a lot of them. But the last line of his king was When Isildur dies, two of his sons die with him. The third does not. All right. And that's the person Aragon and his line ends with. Okay. But you have to remember, he's more in touch with the line that was up there in Arnor, not the line down in Gondor. But he's still technically in line. Like the easier way to put it is, even today, you have countries that do not have kings anymore, but the
Mhm.
houses still exist. Like there is somebody that today, if they bring back the royalty to Russia, there's somebody in line to be czar.
Right.
Germany doesn't have a Kaiser anymore, but there is a house there. They don't recognize it, but there is a house there. You know,
What is it,
That's
Mike?
not at all what I was thinking, Phil. That wasn't at all what I was thinking. I'm not saying anymore.
it's okay. It's okay.
Let me guess. It had to do. It had to do with something about the 1940s.
Yes.
But
Okay.
we don't, like I said, even today there's many countries still have royal houses. They're not official, but if they ever brought back royalty, you do have lines of people that still can be like a line of king, and that's pretty much what happened to Aragon. Uh, what's his name? Elrond been raising constantly the heirs of of Aragon, his grandfather, his father, his great great grandfather, and so
Mhm.
forth, all the way to the last king of Arnor. So, you know, it isn't that he didn't know. Gandalf knew who he was and what was he about. Pretty much Sauron pretty much is not stupid not to know. He's the head of the White Council.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, I don't see where, if there's a person that's worried about Aragon becoming the king of Aragon, Arnor, and Gondor, it's Sauron.
Right.
Saruman really doesn't care. He really doesn't. But he's kind of seeing what Gandalf's been up to all this time. Look, Gandalf's been doing a lot of smoke and mirrors. He knew about the ring. He might not have had a 100%, but he did have inklings that Frodo found the one ring. Okay,
Mhm.
Gandalf's been riding around with Aragon to do many trips and journeys. And the only other person that knows what type of trips and journeys he's been going on is Elrond. So if Elrond knows, he knows.
Mhm.
Uh, let's just say an awakening has come up in Saruman that knows that Gandalf's been setting up the chessboard and moving chess pieces, and he's
Right.
only now catching on. But it isn't like he didn't know that Aragon was a head of the chief of the Dunedain because they don't have kings no more because the kingdom was wiped out.
Uh huh.
So it isn't like Sauron doesn't know this. So, but you have to remember, Aragon this whole entire time outside of Rivendell goes by other names. Strider. There's when he was down serving Gondor, nobody knew that he was Aragon. He had a different name.
Right.
So he's been doing mysterious things, playing cloak and dagger. So let's just say at this point, Sauron, thanks to Wormtongue, is able to say, "Here's this ring," and he was able to nail it down who it was. You
Mhm.
know, so but it isn't like he didn't know who Aragon was. He would just now be able to put two and two together.
Right. So getting back to the story, we're gonna switch now to Frodo and Sam and Gollum again. I mean, at this point, Theoden is leaving Edoras, but that'll get picked up in the next stream. So we're gonna finish out tonight with talking about what happens with Frodo, Sam, and Gollum because they're heading now toward the Morgul Vale, and we see the scene of Gollum trying to catch the fish in the stream, and Sam is putting him down, and Frodo tries to call him out on it. And Frodo talks about how he has hope that in destroying the ring, Gollum can be restored, or however it is that he puts it. And Sam says, I'm sorry, Frodo, but you can't save him. And that causes Frodo to snap.
Because Frodo thinks when he destroys the ring, it's not only going to help him, but it's going to also help Smeagol and
Mhm.
whatever, and probably in a way help Frodo.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or break them whatever magical spell if you think that way, or whatever power it's holding on ring bearers. So if Samwise is telling Mr. Frodo that there's no hope for saving Gollum, then he's practically saying there's no hope in saving him, nor saving, his Uncle Bobo.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's also played off as if that's not Frodo actually. Well, okay, it is Frodo saying it, but the ring is influencing Frodo's what he's choosing to say, because and Sam calls it out. We even see in the end Frodo saying the very same thing, that this is my task, mine, my own. And Sam is right to call him out, saying, you're starting to sound like Gollum.
Well, Gollum never had an intention on destroying that ring. Okay?
Right.
Never. Frodo has intention on destroying that ring. That's his mission.
But
And then technically he's right. It's no one else's job to destroy that ring than
it's the
his.
verbiage that he used that was
Huh?
similar to, but it was the verbiage that he used.
I think the verbiage was a little. I'm pissed off that you just said there's no way I could help Gollum by destroying that ring. And in a sense, that's also implying there's no helping him or his uncle Frodo by destroying the
Bilbo.
ring. That's what he said. If you're going to say it's not going to help him to save Gollum, right? But that's what Frodo's thinking. It's going to help everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here Sam is saying you can't help this guy. In Frodo's mind, you just told Frodo he can't even help himself.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
That's the whole reason he's going.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, did Sam mean it as was intended? No. Because in the movie, Sam always knows he's a villain. Okay. In the book, that's not the case. That's not the case. I mean, even in the movie, sometimes you see, even though they hate each other, there's some points they do get along and help. When Frodo goes into the marshes and he goes down to the light when he was told not to, it's Gollum and Sam that pull him up. You know,
Exactly.
when they're getting in trouble over there by the Black Gate, it's it's Gollum. Like I said, but you have to remember book wise, movie wise. I think it overall in the end equals out. Smeagol wants the ring. Frodo wants to destroy the ring. Sam wants to just help. Okay, but he doesn't trust Smeagol. Frodo needs to do this. He even says it, not just for me, but even tells Smeagol, for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Got to help us both.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think it was just hurt. Even though Sam didn't mean it, the way he said it kind of hurt Frodo because it also denied any hope for him. And we all know Sam didn't mean it in that fashion. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that then leads to Gollum's monologue that he has late at night, and arguably, at least to me, this is like Gollum's best scene, at least in this movie by itself, if not the entire movie series, at least that he's involved in, because we see played out for us um the duality of Gollum's mind, that Smeagol is still in there, and he's having this argument with the treacherous, murderous Gollum. And just real quick, shout out to Andy Serkis, the guy who played him, that was able to, through motion capture and his voice, portray this perfectly.
Mhm.
Like again, Andy Serkis was the perfect casting for Gollum. Yes, it was motion capture, but the voice, he's perfect at it, and portraying and how he's able to switch from one to the other. It's seamless. It's perfect.
The scene which you're talking about is very important because Smeagol / Gollum. Smeagol's able to, in a way, defeat Gollum
Mm-hmm.
and send him away. And by doing so, he actually looks like he's going back to being close to coming back to be his, I don't want to say Hobbit way, but he looks happier. He wants to help Frodo. He trusts Frodo. And it
Right.
actually looks like he's going to be good. Okay. And then you find out later, no fault to anybody, that due to circumstances, he reverts back.
He
You know,
does.
in the book, that doesn't happen. Okay. Movie, it does happen. When you see that, you see a legitimate Gollum, Smeagol. You see Smeagol defeat him. Smeagol is going to do anything he can to help Frodo.
Right.
And then we see
And
later on what happens that causes him to change that. But again, to remember, book-wise, Smeagol's Gollum is always been, he just wants the ring.
I'm going
Plain
to say
simple.
something potentially controversial here, but I think this is one of those things that you're going to head out, Michael?
Yeah, I'm gonna head on out.
Okay. Stick around long enough for me to make this statement so you can give
All
your
right.
thoughts on it, and then we'll see you later. But
Okay.
what I'm going to say right now that is controversial is, I think what you just described, Phil, how the movie did it versus how the book did it, I think honestly I like how the movie did it better, because I liked seeing a little bit more of a character arc for Gollum, where it looks like he is becoming reformed, only to then have it torn away from him in the end.
You have to, when you look at it through different lenses, you get different outlooks on it. When you
Right.
look at Smeagol Gollum, from the time he killed Deagle to the
Mhm.
time Bobo gets the ring, it's a tragic life. All right. Even in the future, as we're going in the future, it's still a tragic life. Not he's nothing like he was. All right. Now in the book, even after he gets the ring and he kills his cousin, there's a period of time he stays in the little hobbit village there that his grandmother's in charge of, and he becomes a terror. We don't get that. You don't hear nothing about that. You only get that in a book. It got
Right.
so much of a terror that his own grandmother had to kick him out of that hobbit village that he lived in. It was forced him to go into the mountains and
Right.
literally become Gollum. All right. So
Mhm.
that's already a mental thing going on. And he's already got the mental going on as Smeagol versus the being that's in the image in his mind of what's controlling him with the ring, Gollum. Yeah, but when you have this scene, like I said, it's not in the movie, I mean in the book, it's perfect because you see that for a moment he defeats it. He's able to beat the ring, even though he doesn't have the ring. He's able to beat it. Whatever control it had on him from that moment in time until what happens with
With Faramir.
Faramir, and they capture him and they beat him up, and that turns him back. to the evil form, it's legit.
Yeah,
It's legit. He's honest. He's good. Uh, there's a big change there. You know.
right. Real quick, Phil, let's get Michael's thoughts on it because he's got to go.
All right.
So, Michael, what's your
Well,
thought on this?
so anyways, when it comes to with Gollum and Smeagol, I definitely feel like being able to visualize it on screen and seeing Gollum and Smeagol effectively being two different characters and yet they're one is probably one of the best things about The Lord of the Rings, where even though we didn't see it a whole lot in Hobbit, both with the movies and the books, we definitely see that there is conflict within Gollum, and I think that's probably one of the highlights of it. And of course, like you said earlier, the fact that it's Andy Serkis who is able to pull off such an iconic voice of a broken hobbit that's been alive for well over 500 years makes Gollum probably one of the most sympathetic characters in the sense that you do feel bad for him, even though he's the villain. Well, anyways, I'm gonna head on out. You two have a good one.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Michael,
Later,
and we'll see
Michael.
if we can get you on the next part, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna try and bring this to a close. Also, we've got a little bit more to talk about, so let's rapid fire through this. So the conversation happens, and the Gollum side of Gollum's psyche is seemingly banished, and Smeagol is back. And of course, the next morning we get the classic scene: "Stupid fat hobbit, you ruined it!" And we find the Southrons are marching toward Mordor, and we see the Oliphants for the first time. And then we also, at that point, see the Southrons and the Oliphants get attacked by Faramir and his rangers. So, Frodo, thank you, Eddie. I've had years of practice. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum try and sneak away, but they literally bump right into Faramir and his men. And they immediately capture them. And then there's this weird monologue that Faramir does that was added in the extended edition, where he's looking at one of the dead bodies of the Southrons that he shot, talking about you wonder who he was, whether he had a say in any of this, etc., etc.
Did he have a family?
Yeah,
Or
I
or
mean,
was he brought here just by? That's a typical person in war question. You know, is the enemy that I'm trying to kill really my enemy, or is he brought here just by same circumstances as I am? He was just showing a little humanity. That guy that he killed, is war.
exactly.
If that guy had the chance, he probably would have killed Faramir. But in a different world, if there was peace, maybe they would have been friends. They would have got along. You
You
know.
know, okay, I gotta Google something real quick.
Go ahead.
Uh, this is from Star Trek. What I'm about to look up here. Um, where is it? Okay, so Star Trek time. Do you remember at the very end of the episode in the original series, Balance of Terror? You have Kirk and the Romulan commander that are looking at each other across view screens. And what you just said there, Phil, reminded me a lot of this quote the um that the Romulan commander says, quote, "I regret that we meet in this way. You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend."
That goes, like I said, that goes for any moment in time in any conflict. You know, people always ask that question, and you have to remember, uh, in some form or fashion, I think this has contributed to Tolkien, and Tolkien put his life experience in this. Uh, trenches of World War One. It don't get any nastier than that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and again, remember, even in our world today, when we go to war and fight somebody, they're the bad guys. They are evil. They have to be stopped. They're pretty much, you demonize them. You have to, because it's war. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
is it propaganda? You better believe it, because guess what? The people on the other side that you're saying that to are saying the same things about you. You know, and there's a
Exactly.
moment in time you question yourself. I don't care any war. There's no war that, in my opinion, from now till the sun goes down, that is 100% justified. That we cannot, in a modern day, solve our problem without having war. Okay,
Yeah.
but anytime we have a war, it's always been that way. I don't care what the circumstances, who the circumstances is, even in the Civil War. Them people are bad, them people are good. They have to be stopped and they have to be destroyed. Look at this way: modern 2024, our biggest allies in the world, Japan and Germany.
Back in the 40s, though, that was not the
That
case.
they were our mortal enemies, right? At
Fun
one
fact,
time, Great Britain was our mortal enemy. Today is one of our biggest allies.
real quick
Yeah.
fun fact about my family. My grandfather, keep in mind, my grandfather on my dad's side, and I doubt he's watching this, but still, I say this with respect. He did not fight in World War II, but he was alive during that. And to this day, according to my cousin, still has a grudge against Japan because they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it. Nothing good, nothing bad. But, a sneak attack is a sneak attack, even if it wasn't intended to be that way. But you have to remember, no matter what, if you're looking at it through a lens, we were going to war anyway.
Right.
We just needed an excuse to go for it. Um, but let's just say, since it was a sneak attack, uh, yeah, we took that to heart. You know, they took it personally. There are two people back then. There's nothing dirtier than to do a sneak attack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So that's pretty much it, though. I mean, like we said, Faramir captures. Oh, here we go. Eddie says Britain and Ireland were always great friends with the U.S. for the last 200 years. Yeah, that is
no,
true.
no. We had to break a war with independence from Great Britain. We had to fight them. We had to fight them in 1812 a second time, and almost went to war with them a third time. At one time, Britain was our greatest enemy. So today, yes. If you were to say that about 100 years ago, no. George Washington was not a fan of Great Britain then, and probably if he was alive today now. Uh, Andrew Jackson couldn't stand the British. He fought them in 2 wars and got scarred as a child because of a British soldier. Uh, yeah, there is, even today, there are some people in the peninsula I live on. They call it Delmarva, but it's made up of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. They still do not like the English there. So,
I
and that's
believe it.
200 years ago.
Hmm.
They still have resentment, you know.
So, anyways, that's pretty much it as far as the story. Like I said, we're gonna pick up from where we left off in part 3. Phil, let's go ahead and schedule that now while we're looking at it. Can we say potentially Monday?
What time Monday?
Actually, no, Monday's not going to work. I'm going to need a little bit more prep time for that. Shall we say Wednesday?
What time?
Let's see. 9 o'clock?
We can go for that. We can
Okay,
go for that.
so Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we will be back with part 3. I don't think we're going to finish the movie in part 3,
I think
but
these movies, since you're doing a extended edition versus book, it's going to take 4 episodes for each.
yeah, we got lucky with Fellowship because that one's like the most cut and dry one to do. But as the books go on and like the point of views get more and more split, Return of the King, let's be honest, Return of the King is going to be a mess because arguably Return of the King, that was the one that they changed the most in as far as book versus movie, right?
Well, you even got a big change in theatric release and extended version. You
Oh
know,
yeah, but
good
we'll
thing we're
get
not
we'll
comparing them things because then we would triple our time. But
yeah, we're going to get into that though next
Lord of the
time.
Rings movie extended versus book, there are differences, but not by much. But yeah, Two Towers, definitely there's a lot of change. And Return of the King, there is definitely a lot
Yeah,
more change.
one of
So
one of which, well, okay, there's two changes that are kind of tied with each other, and I had wished that they had kept those the way that they were, but get we'll get into that when we get into that. So anyways, for now guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will talk to you later. Wait, hold on. I didn't hit the outro video. There we go.